Hello, I'm Marlena. I'm a psychotherapist, codependency expert and relationship educator, and I've put together this 3-part course on why you lose yourself in a relationship and how to stop doing that. It has come because many people wrote to me asking, why do I lose myself in a relationship? How does it take over? What can I do about it? How can I continue to take care of myself? And I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to address an issue that is very often not addressed in traditional codependency literature. So, to understand why you lose yourself in relationships, it's important to kind of figure out what it is you seek from a relationship. Very often we lose ourselves because our focus turns from within ourselves to someone else, right? So whereas before there aren't any distractions, there isn't anyone else to focus on, we focus on ourselves, and while we might be seeking someone else, we still take care of ourselves in some ways. Okay, so what happens when we get into a relationship? We become very preoccupied with our partner, preoccupied with the relationship. We focus away from ourselves and onto our new partner. The way we feel about ourselves becomes dictated by our partner's mood, their evaluation of us, and we start to try to please them. And every time we focus attention away from ourselves, we are less attuned to ourselves, our feelings, our needs. We are less present to be responsive to our feelings and needs, and therefore we take less care of ourselves, which means that eventually we start to feel worse. Our mental health deteriorates, our energy decreases. At one point, self-neglect can even lead to physical problems. So what happens is that old patterns get triggered. As a child, we will protect our attachment to our caregiver above everything else. So when, as an adult, you get into a relationship and you start off with that habit, you set the scene for full codependency to develop, because it becomes a very one-sided relationship, one in which you put yourself down, you devalue yourself, you devalue your feelings and your needs, and you prioritize someone else's above yours. You prioritize the attachment and you protect the attachment to this new person, and sacrifice the relationship you have with yourself. Now, the reason why I'm saying it's an old habit is because we almost resort back into a more childlike frame of mind, where we feel that we have to protect the attachment. This is more important than looking after ourselves, because the other person is responsible for looking after ourselves. It's almost like we forget that we can do it and that we should do it, because after all, that is our one and only, our main priority and responsibility in life. So it's like we get caught up in an old pattern of conditioning that we have to break free from. So it's not necessarily that there's anything wrong with you, that you have got very deep-seated issues. It could just be that an old pattern gets triggered and that part of you hasn't quite received enough nurturance to feel secure and grown up within a relationship, and you still fall into the pattern of sacrificing yourself and your needs for the benefit of someone else, even though, as we will see in another part of this series, it's not for anyone's benefit. It's an old pattern that keeps you stuck in experiencing and creating unfulfilling relationships. That's definitely a pattern you want to break. So I hope that this explains why you lose yourself in relationships, and why it's difficult to maintain self-care when you get in a relationship, because your attention is focused away from you. So you start to struggle to know what you want in the moment and focus onto someone else. So with that happening, we kind of lose touch, we get less connected to ourselves, and then as a result, there's going to be less connection to another person. Explore that in your life. See if that is true, whether you become preoccupied with the other person, whether you start thinking about them, whether you start worrying about the state of the relationship, you get consumed by worrying that the relationship will end, that the nice feelings of initial romance will wear off, and in that process you forget about yourself. So it's not necessarily that your relationship makes you forget about yourself or leads to self-neglect. It's more that your mind gets hijacked by preoccupied thoughts about someone else or the relationship. So I hope you find that useful. Can't wait to see you in part 2.